You are listening to Curious Cat, a podcast that explores the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. And I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. Hello, welcome. I hope you're doing okay this week. So, this week we're talking about the eye of the storm, that calm in the middle of the chaos. As I record, it's early June, and the U.S. has suffered another unspeakable tragedy. Whether you live 15 miles away or 2,000, I'm sure the news was a gut kick. I avoid the news, but current events seeps into my life like rain through a leaky roof. When I heard what happened, I was sad, angry, sick, and wondered what I could possibly do to help. No answer was enough. The voice in my head told me that, and that's how tragedy strikes twice. Faced with the pain and suffering on a massive scale, we become paralyzed and do nothing. So what if, instead of focusing on the big picture, we zoom into the square patch of grass beneath our feet? We find ways to help on the micro level, even just helping ourselves first. Would that shift in perspective be enough to spur us to action? That's what we're going to explore together today. So last week's episode was all about the phenomenon of the human soul. I swear this all relates. If you haven't listened to it yet, that's fine. There's no right or wrong order to Curious Cat. But this week's focus came from an off-the-cuff insight I had at the end of that episode. That our souls are like our personal memory sticks or thumb drives that we carry from life to death to what comes after. On it, it holds our memories, our experiences, the impressions of the loved ones that we had, the places we maybe stumbled and failed completely or need to continue to work and grow, as well as holding our successes, our maybe obstacles we've become experts at or at least better at in this lifetime. Those we've loved deeply, all that and more. But what the soul thumb drive includes that's just as important is blank space to write what comes next. It's impossible to dive into spirituality without being inundated with calls to meditate, meditate, meditate. What's that about, and how does it relate to today's show? Well, if you haven't been taught this from a spiritual source or guide, I'll lay it bare. Meditation is the key to remembering what's on your soul thumb drive. It teaches us how to block out noise from the outside world and remember who we are, why we came here, and what steps to take to grow. It's a place to feel small and big at the same time, connected and disconnected, separate and distinct. It is the void between two worlds, and it can be a calm eye of the storm for us, a place to sit and observe as the world swirls and mixes and boils and burns and settles and whatevers. So the goal of meditation is to teach yourself to remember yourself now and forever, so that even if you die, you keep hold of the knowledge and carry it forward with you as you become what you become next. Some high magicians call it your solar body. You'll remember your solar body, and you won't have to start from zero when you come into your next life. We came into this world perfect. As a parent, whenever I get a compliment about my even completely grown adult children, I always say they came into the world perfect, and it was our job to just stay out of their way. And we hit and missed that goal, but they were born perfect. As children, remember being your younger self? We sparkled with spirit because we'd come from a place of pure energy. We were of the spirit. Then, as our families, well-intentioned probably, our schools, our churches, our culture rolled out their lessons, we slowly and sometimes steeply forgot what was once a natural and innate, the magic of us. I raised my kids a stone's throw away from Microsoft. The schools that they attended were filled with professionals that worked at Microsoft that literally viewed their 5 to 6 year stint at the company as a personal sacrifice they were making to create a life-changing nest egg. I do not say that with judgment. There are reasons that they wanted to have a financial nest egg that were very important to them. But they saw joy as something that was to be put off until that stint had run its course, and then they could somehow make up for lost time. Sometimes they tried to cram it into a 2-week vacation once a year just to kind of be a band-aid to tide their souls over. And in other instances, the pattern I noticed is they would work, and they wouldn't have time to volunteer in the class or whatever. And then they just burn out. They leave Microsoft or whatever the corporate gig was. And often they jump with both feet into something like yoga. I mean, pursuing being a yoga teacher. It was this unconscious battle within them to balance out what had been a sole pursuit of money and power and career with a quick fix. There were other similar stories I watched in real life, and I continue to, that are painful to see. People that were forced to leave a high-pressure career because they'd been diagnosed with cancer, or they'd lost a loved one, and it was literally the straw that broke the camel's back. It exposed how fragile their existence had been. And any of those causes an instantaneous reevaluation of life. Well, I'd like to help you find ways to your life's purpose, your soul's purpose, without having that jarring, dark night of the soul moment. Live like you're dying, except you aren't. You are living with intention. It's finding and remaining in that calm, steady, eye of the storm seat as the world around us erupts in chaos. It's keeping the peace within us, which is good for us as well as our families and communities. So how do we begin to do this? I think unplugging, even if it's just temporarily from the daily noise of the world, it doesn't mean we ignore everything that's happening, the world events, but even the news has changed so much since I was a child in the 80s. In the 80s, I remember we had a current events project that we were given in high school where we had to watch the nightly news for a week and kind of write down and maybe report on what had been covered, what the news source was and what stories were covered. And after a day, maybe it was 2, some of my fellow students raised their hands and told the teacher that it was hard, it was painful, it was sad, and it was hard to tap into these world events. And he said something that was interesting, which is ask yourself when it feels overwhelming, What can you do about it yourself right now? Sometimes it's a simple thing, like you can send a thought or a prayer or, into the ethers and know that it lands on something that will maybe help that community, that person, that victim, whatever that you read about or heard about on the news. Sometimes he said it can be a call to action that maybe you're concerned now about your community's food insecurities, and it wasn't called that at the time, but, look in the pantries and see if there's something that you can fill up a bag of groceries with and donate to your local food bank. So he said, don't be paralyzed into doing nothing. Do a little something, and that's probably enough. The second observation about watching the news in the 80s for that class is the news was different. You weren't inundated with it all the time. You were generally, most of your life was living life face to face with other people, whether school or in sports or at your job or over the phone. You were having real contact with other people. And then the news was at the most maybe a half hour or an hour at night, or a reading of the morning newspaper for 15 minutes over coffee. And then, so grand total, maybe world events and the news was an hour 10 at most if you were seeking it every day. And the news back then, something they did right was at the end of the newscast, the very last story, they'd always have a little feel-good news feature. And it may be about, a pet rescue gone right, or a neighbor that helped somebody else in need, or it was just one of those things that you ended the newscast with a smile on your face. And I actually really appreciate that. They call them fluff pieces because it fluffed up the last minutes of a newscast, but it's actually, I liked the good news and I miss it. And we are drowning in the negative and the bad news. So it's hard to find our eye of the storm, the center peaceful part of our day anymore. It's really challenging. The news flickers on our smartphones. You know what I'm talking about. Even if you're doing something silly and happy fun like Instagram or TikTok, it's still there. You can't not be completely immersed in it. Wayne W. Dyer said, "Peace is the result of retraining your mind to process life as it is rather than as you think it should be." I thought that was an interesting take. I found an article for us to start exploring ways to maybe find the calm or find our calm center during all of this chaos. Things that, events that are larger than life that make us feel helpless and they make us feel like depressed, and we find ourselves spinning out with those events instead of remembering, wait a second, I need to take care of myself too. Because the truth is, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So the article I found was called Finding Peace in a Crazy World. And it was from a site called thepowerofpositivity.com. And of course, I've got links to it in the show notes. Their article's titled 7 Ways to Discover Peace in a Crazy World. And it feels very appropriate, doesn't it? And they have a little picture at the beginning of the article that says, "Be like a tree, stay grounded, keep growing, and know when to let go." So their first piece of advice, respond rather than react. If you want to discover peace in a crazy world, you can't let everything that happens get under your skin. Eastern religions teach that we should have composure in all circumstances in life so as not to let them control us. If you react to every situation life throws at you, whether it's negative or positive, your emotional and mental state will remain imbalanced. In other words, you will remain a victim of life rather than a master of it. By keeping your composure in both challenging and joyous times, you'll be able to respond rather than react. Life inevitably comes with ups and downs. However, if you can ride the waves instead of letting them pull you under, you'll come out on top every time. Most people only feel peace when things go their way. The second anything unpleasant or traumatic happens, they lose their cool and allow life's turbulence to drown them. Indian philosopher and speaker Jiddu Krishnamurti said it best, "This is my secret. I don't mind what happens." This statement doesn't mean you should have a heartless, stoic approach to life. It simply means you won't allow life's ever-changing circumstances to control your emotions. I know it's easier said than done, but it's worth noting when life events have you distracted from what you can actually do about them. That wasn't in the article. I just threw that in because it hit me. The second piece of advice, way to discover peace in a crazy world, is accept life rather than fight against it. Expanding upon the first point, you can discover peace by accepting your circumstances. No matter if you have your dream home, job, or car, you can still find happiness in the now. If you have a roof over your head, a family who loves you, food and water, and clothes on your back, you have a lot to give thanks for. Most people feel discomfort and anxiety because they will always fight against life. They don't feel inner peace because they give all their energy to worrying, ruminating, or in some way removing themselves from the present moment. What we resist persists. So if you feel any tension in you, choose to release it and feel the peace wash over you. What we resist persists. That is so interesting. Once you've accepted your situation, you can choose your next step with a clear head. By releasing those pent-up emotions, you'll find it much easier to discover your intuition, which will help guide the way. Again, your intuition lives in the eye of that storm, that calm center as the rest of the world swirls. 3, they offer as advice is to meditate and go within. I told you people love talking about meditation, but it's true. It's a muscle that we have to develop if we want this inner peace. Scientists have been studying the benefits of meditation for decades now and have discovered some profound facts about it. Meditation simply means training your attention and awareness by using your breath to control bodily energy. Eastern religions practice meditation daily as a part of their devotion to a higher power. Of course, you needn't have a religion to engage in the practice, they say. It offers benefits to everyone, and you can start at any time. From beginners to advanced devotees, meditation can bring about life-changing results. Here are a few benefits of meditation, all backed by science. And they listed them. Reduces stress, lessens anxiety, promotes emotional well-being and balance, heightens your self-awareness and intuition, lengthens attention span, improves memory, helps increase kind feelings towards self and others, improves sleep quality, helps curb addiction, decreases blood pressure and heart rate, and lessens your pain response. 4, they offer to find ways to discover peace in a crazy world is to make your home or your little space, if you're in a dorm room or you still live in your parents' home, make your home your sanctuary. If you have a peaceful environment to come home to, this will help ward off stress and anxiety about life. By surrounding yourself with plants, soothing music, beautiful, inspiring art, even that you create yourself, and other peace-promoting objects, you will find tranquility in your immediate environment. Eliminate anything that disturbs your inner calm, whether that means getting rid of unnecessary clutter, turning off the news, or throwing out unhealthy foods. If you turn your home into a sanctuary, you can always look forward to returning after a stressful day. Maintain a calm environment at home, and this will help facilitate peaceful feelings in your heart and mind. It's tricky, but if you're a teenager out there listening to this podcast and you are sharing a space with a sibling, maybe it can be something that you work on together that is a positive and peaceful place for both of you. And maybe there's ways that you can use extra bed sheets or some other way of creating a separate space that's kind of a quiet sanctuary within the room that maybe you have to share with a sibling or a roommate. Watch the company that you keep. No one likes to surround themselves with negative people, but we all know someone in our lives, which tends to bring us down most often than not. Pay attention to your close friends and notice how you feel around them. If you leave feeling drained and overwhelmed after hanging out with them, you should reevaluate your friendship with them. And I know that it's easier said than done. You can't just, I'm not saying this is me as a mom here, I guess. Don't ditch all your friendships, but if you notice certain friendships do drain you, limit your exposure. Maybe set a timer on your phone to go off after an hour of being with them and know that it was enough to have time with the friend and you'll want to see them again, but it hasn't tapped you out. When I was in college, I went with a friend of mine to their Christmas party, and there was a psychic there. And I'll never forget. I don't remember, I didn't know about tarot back then, but she was drawing tarot cards, and she said that I should be wary of psychic vampires. And I thought that was such an interesting term, a psychic vampire, someone that like sucks all of the energy from you. And it's become kind of a touchstone because I'll notice sometimes just going to the grocery store can be the psychic vampire. I just can't deal with all that activity, right? So just be mindful of that. They also remind us that friends should uplift and inspire you. So if they tend to lower your mood the majority of the time, ask yourself why you continue to hang out with them. Friends should add value to your life in some way. If you want to discover peace in a crazy world, start by distancing yourself from people who don't bring out the best in you. 6 is discover peace by getting out in nature. We've evolved over thousands of years by remaining in touch with our natural environment. Unfortunately, many diseases had surfaced when we started removing ourselves from nature and shifting to a modern, tech-driven world. While modern conveniences have made our lives easier in many ways, they've also cut off our connection to our natural environment. Studies show how nature can restore peace and calm in our lives. When we surround ourselves with woods, streams, or natural scenery, our minds immediately start to calm down. And I'm just going to interject here. You can do this even via your phone. There are countless videos you can watch of just a stream running through the forest, or even you can even fall asleep at night to those noises. They go on to say studies show how nature can restore peace and calm in our lives. When we surround ourselves with woods, streams, or natural scenery, our minds immediately start to calm down. It's a physical response. In our modern world, our attention continually flits from one stimulus to another. However, the peacefulness found in nature allows our minds to drift slowly from one scene to another. The slower pace of life in nature can help you discover peace in this crazy world. It can also help ward off depression and negative thinking. Science shows that spending 90 minutes walking in nature reduces activity in the part of the brain associated with negative rumination. And their final piece of advice is to listen to others' problems without taking them on as your own. And for me, I call it my cup is full, and I decide to give to others. The moment we take on other people's problems, our peace gets snatched away from us. We can give empathy to others without absorbing their energy or taking it on as our own. Many empaths have a hard time differentiating between their energy and others, but having a boundary is vital to preserving inner peace. If you find that people come up to you often to divulge their problems, simply listen without giving too much of your energy. By allowing circumstances outside yourself to dictate your emotions, peace will always evade you. However, if you take whatever life throws at you and maintain a balanced disposition, you will have more energy and resources to help other people. Here are some ways you can provide love and support to others without becoming overwhelmed. Give them advice, but don't get too wrapped up in their stories. Suggest other resources to them, such as counselors or meditation programs. Make time for your self-care because you can't pour from an empty cup. Don't give more of yourself away than you can afford. In other words, if you have a lot on your plate right now, perhaps focus more on yourself than others. This practice isn't selfish. It's sometimes necessary to strike a balance. Remind them that sometimes life throws us curveballs, but that doesn't mean things will remain difficult forever. Final thoughts from the article about how to discover peace in a crazy world. We all want inner peace, happiness, and fulfillment. However, without the hard times, we wouldn't appreciate the easy ones as much. In our reality, we must have both the dark and the light, otherwise we wouldn't exist. So next time you feel frazzled and overwhelmed by life, just remember that the hard times don't last forever, and you will see better days. If you want to maintain peace even in a more difficult time, just remember that you can choose how you respond to situations outside your control. Accept rather than fight against life. Meditate to keep your emotional composure. Make your home cozy and peaceful, and don't allow people into your life who disturb your peace. Finally, make time for nature and help others without taking on their problems as your own. Do these things, they say, and you will find that peace you've been searching for. I thought that was an excellent article, and I had to read the whole thing because I felt like it was really worth it with the advice they were giving. It's really important to kind of keep that center of yourself as a sacred space. And they were mentioning that when others come to you to, unload their information on you, their problems on you, it's also okay to say, I'm not in a space to hear this today. I am so sorry. And if you say it in love, they're going to actually probably receive that in love and see that boundary. It was interesting because I was listening to a podcast earlier today when I was running, and the person on it had written a book that came out during 2020 during the lockdowns. And he is talking all about finding the spiritual center of us during crazy times. So very much in this thread, right? He gave a piece of advice that I thought was interesting to reframe. So look at experiences with a larger perception and ask, what is the lesson? So going back to the very beginning of this podcast, when I was talking about that, your soul being your memory stick, if you can look at what the situation is right now, if the problem is very personal, you have a pet that's ill, you are in between jobs and you don't have the job that you need right now. I mean, if those troubles are super duper personal, belly button problems, they involve you and your belly button, then maybe this advice is harder to take. But he said, take a wider, larger perception of it, look at it from a wider perspective and ask, what is the lesson? And if you ask that in terms of my soul as a memory stick, say, I guess I wanted to know that abundance can be fleeting, but I can unlock it by maybe looking for a job in a field that I never even contemplated just because I need a paycheck. So, if you can just take that wider view, it feels like the things that you're encountering and the troubles feel a little less personal. Also, another tactic is to notice when you're not at center. So when you're spinning, because you got caught up in the world events or the community events that aren't your belly button events. And an easy way to do that is to go to your local, office supply store, especially now, if it's in the middle of the year. If it's any month but December and January, these are pretty inexpensive. And you can buy one of those big desk calendars and you can pin it on your wall or just prop it up against your wall and just make a couple boxes. Like, did I meditate? Did I exercise? Nature, food choices. You can rank yourself 1 to 5, 1 being really bad fast food to 5 of like you're creating a meal with organic ingredients, and see if you can start checking off more of those boxes each day, because those are ways that you can make sure that that little eye of the storm, which is you and your soul, are staying kind of tethered in yourself so that you are more capable of taking care of your community if you choose your cup being full and tapping into it and helping other people. The other thing, this author of the book that I'll put in the show notes that I listened to the podcast episode about, he said to fill your spiritual pantry. And I like that visual. Keep it stocked for the moments when you need to return to center. So have these things that maybe are on that daily calendar, however you want to put it. You can even use your phone and your notes app to keep track of this stuff. But use it to return to center quicker. So if you notice that you're a little off tilt, you're a little spun up about things that aren't your own, that you can do anything about, come back to your spiritual pantry. And instead of cans of soup, it's things like, I need to take 5 minutes to put on some nature sounds and maybe just tap into that and listen to nature. I need to maybe do a meditation that I found on YouTube. I need to maybe take a bath or a shower and have some, self-care in that way. So you can just more quickly find your center again instead of feeling helpless and feeling like life is happening to you. But instead, you're participating with life. I hope today's conversation has you feeling powerful and like you're in charge of that sacred space that's in the eye of the storm, and that calm is yours to keep and maintain. It's like a little Zen garden within the rest of the world. And I'd love to know how it's going for you and what changes or maybe tweaks and things that you're doing to help keep that peace within you during these crazy times. Thank you for listening to Curious Cat. If you like the content, stories, and information, I'd be grateful if you'd recommend the podcast to one friend or family member to grow our listenership. Huge shout out to our art director and to our audio engineer. If you need those services, find their links in the show notes and reach out to them. They're amazing. If you don't already, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.